At least 3 Formula teams have requested the FIA to provide some clarification and few details regarding the legality of the current Haas VF22 car, according to a recent report from German automobile magazine Automotor und Sport. Haas, just like Ferrari, decided not to invest in resources in last year's Formula 1 because they were sure it wouldn't bring any major improvements to the existing vehicles. Instead, they decided to spend most part of the last season focusing on developing something according to the new technical rules and regulations which was introduced this year. Haas also ended the 2021 Formula 1 campaign with extremely poor results, as they were not even able to score a single point, as Nikita Mazepin and Ferrari junior Mick Schumacher failed to reach near the top 10, and the results were quite disappointing for the team. However, this year, things were different. Ferrari returned to the top in 2022, and people also noticed that Haas made several significant gains. This is due to the return of an experienced driver like Kevin Magnussen, who replaced Mick Schumacher. Kevin scored points in 2 of the first 3 races this season. This resulted in so many heated discussions as to how they could make such a huge leap in performance. Haas rivals are of the opinion that Haas has brought significant portion of their parts from Ferrari, who supplies them with power units and other components. Haas has been the center of a growing debate because of the kind of alliances between several Formula 1 teams, because we have seen several rival team bosses that are arguing about the regulations that need to be changed to eliminate collaborations being too close. Haas has a technical partnership with Ferrari ever since 2016 and made it to F1. Haas benefited from Ferrari's flat and compact engines this season. The suspension and pivot points are also sourced legally from Ferrari. Now, the technical partnership might be confusing to some. Well, this actually means Haas will not only receive a supply of Ferrari engines and gearboxes, but they also get few parts that can be interchanged. This could be suspension parts or just about any other mechanical parts that are required for F1 cars, but it excludes any aerodynamic surfaces, the monocoque, and other key components. Not so surprisingly, Haas also shares Ferrari's wind tunnel. This is completely legal as long as both the teams are independent of Ferrari, despite being in the same location. Haas also uses Ferrari's facility in Maranello to conduct their operations, and the Italians opened a Haas hub next to its factory, which is mainly staffed by people who move across Ferrari and have been working on the car for the Formula 1 Championship 2021. Simone RESTA, the former Ferrari head of chassis engineering, previously joined Haas in an undefined role. Alpine team principal Otmar Szafnauer was quite surprised about the huge progress that Haas made this year. Szafnauer said, "It's a small team that's done well over the winter from last to sometimes third fastest team. I thought that the pecking order would stay almost the same because over the years that I've been in Formula 1, the bigger the regulation change, the more it favors those who know how and the infrastructure and the tools to exploit the new tools. So it's a bit surprising that Haas are where they are for a small team. But I trust the FIA will investigate and come to the right conclusion about how similar the two cars are. In an ideal world, the rules are pretty clear and the difficulty is policing," said Szafnauer. "So if the policing of the rules is impossible, then we should change the rules so that they are able to be policed such that the playing field is even. There's more discussion to be had with the FIA and perhaps a bit of reform on the rules such that they can be policed." Alfa Romeo boss Frederick Vasseur reflected on the importance of evaluating and ensuring legality in almost every aspect, all the way from new limits of budget cap to the sharing of wind tunnels, but he also admitted that he does not have any concerns regarding the FIA's integrity and competency. Haas team principal Günther Steiner recently said that, "We have got the FIA at our place more often than you think. They are there to check it out and they want that." Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff also wanted for reforms in the regulations to prevent such controversies in the future. He also feels like there is a need to rethink the existing rules to avoid such issues. He talked about a very recent situation regarding the transfer of personnel, which happened because Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull wanted to deal with cost cap limitations. This concept was introduced in 2021 and dropped to a new baseline level of $140 million, which forced the teams to find solutions to reallocate the employees. Christian Horner, Red Bull team principal, said that this move actually impacted close to 100 employees, some of which were forced to move across to the sister team AlphaTauri. Wolff was also concerned about sharing information, which is quite difficult to control. The best option would be to check for sharing of actual design data and not the knowledge that could be transferred through conversation or other informal means, because they are very difficult to monitor. He also stated that the policies needed some reforms, to avoid such kinds of discussions in the future, because everybody deserves to perform well and people should get the credit when they have done a really good job. Wolff said, "We have Aston Martin in the wind tunnel that 2 years ago we had quite a storm about. We have been handling that with the utmost diligence. But going forward, if we were to need to compromise on our income ability, we need to do this because none of the teams should be able to cooperate in a way that we're seeing in some." Wolff was also quite surprised about Mercedes, which is a team that has won 15 out of the last 16 Drivers' Constructors' Championship, and right now they have to compete with a much smaller team. Wolff said Haas has made a huge jump from being last into being solidly into Q3 in Bahrain. So that's an interesting step. For us, it's a learning exercise because as an organization, we have 1,000 people and we've been successful in the past. Suddenly, you're fighting a team that's much smaller in size, so they must have done a super job. McLaren would be a team that has been very critical of such arrangements for some time now because this is a fully independent team that does not have a technical partnership with any other team beyond its Mercedes power supply. Team principal Andreas Seidel also expressed concerns about the whole F1 landscape, but he did not specifically point fingers at Haas. But he's of the opinion that rules should be changed to prevent such expansive technical partnership. Andreas said, "In Formula 1, the maximum that you should be allowed to share is the power unit and the gearbox internals. There should be no sharing of any infrastructure and so on. Because as soon as you allow that, IP transfer is happening on the car side. We know from the FIA that it's difficult to police, and if something is not possible to police, then you need to ban it. It makes B teams overly competitive compared to the teams like us. At the same time, the A teams are also benefiting, which is even more worrying for us. We just hope with all the dialogues that is happening with F1 and several teams that we finally see some action in the next few years in order to correct the situation." AlphaTauri also shares the Red Bull wind tunnel. Team principal Franz Tost says the AlphaTauri and Red Bull are entirely compliant with the regulations. As of now, there is no exchange of technical information. Tost stated, "It's a good way to work together with another team. In the past we designed our gearbox, we had our own wind tunnel, and this was a waste of money. To go in the direction that every team now has to have its own wind tunnel is absolute waste of money and also not balanced with sustainability. With 100% respect for the rules, we share a wind tunnel with Red Bull technology, but there is absolutely no exchange of technical information, absolutely nothing." Right now, we don't know much about which of these teams might have contacted the FIA regarding Haas's close partnership with Scuderia Ferrari, but it looks like McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin, and Alpine are likely to be among those teams that might have contacted the FIA regarding this issue. Such debates have been very common in Formula 1 racing for years, but it's Haas's arrival in 2016 that just blew this up, especially looking at this season's results. At this point, we don't think that the FIA has got plans to modify the regulations, but with all the pressure from other competitors, the FIA at some point in the future will modify the regulations. At present, the FIA is extremely happy that Haas is operating within the regulations, and any changes in the future seasons due to the pressure from other competitions would mean that Haas will have to make a few changes.